Hello, Perspective. Welcome to the bar. Today, we're going to be talking about Frankenstein. But first, I'm going to get a drink. So, Frankenstein was written by a girl named Mary Shelley and is considered one of the four books that started the horror genre within books and movies. Personally, I found it to be a terribly boring book. Very long, lots of big words, and I ended up reading the Spark Notes, to be honest. It really wasn't worth the 1.5 million pages that the book was. But Frankenstein is a good story, arcing line, not really individually in the chapters. It was quite boring, as I believe I already stated. Anyways, it was a grand story, and it draws many parallels to modern society. So I just wanted to talk about those for a real few minutes here. Frankenstein starts off, and it's Dr. Victor Frankenstein, and he wants to create life. So he runs around and does a bunch of things, and anyway, it comes down to it. He manages to create the monster. Its name is not Frankenstein. It is just called the monster. That's a common misconception. You should get rid of it right now. So after he creates the monster, he freaks out and runs away, and so does the monster, and it runs off. And the monster lives in France for a little while, and lives near these French people's house. And the French people, they're talking, and there's this old blind man. So the monster decides to try to become friends with the old blind man because, well, it needs a friend. So he steals their books and their food and stuff for a while, and then finally the young couple runs off to go do whatever young couples do, probably get married. And so he goes to visit the old man, and he's talking to the old man, and the old man is blind, so he just hears a regular voice, and the old man and he become friends. And he does that whenever the couple leaves, until eventually one day the couple gets back early, and all of a sudden there's this hideous monster talking to their grandpa, and they freak out, and so does the monster, and the monster accidentally kills them. Not quite sure how you accidentally kill someone if you're a monster, but for the sake of the plotline, we'll just accept that fact. So then the monster decides he wants to go and try to find Victor, because Victor is the father in his eyes. So he finds Victor, and the monster pleads with Victor to give him a wife, because he just knows that everything has a companion, and he is alone in the world because he's hideous. The monster is, not Victor. Victor's not really that hideous, he's just kind of annoying. So Victor says, okay, I'll do it. And so Victor's got his own girl on the side that he's been dating for forever, and so he makes the female monster. And he makes the monster, and he's about to bring her to life, when all of a sudden he has a change of heart. He thinks, wait a minute, the male monster is perfectly fine with going out and living out his days in solitude, but what if she's not? Or even worse, what if they interbreed and have a little baby monster? It'd be hideous. It'd be terrible. So he just decides, no, not going to do it, chops up the monster, goes out into the middle of the lake and dumps her. And this is the modern equivalent of aborting his monster, and it really draws a lot of big questions, but we'll tackle some of those later. So the monster obviously is a little bit upset. He's like, dude, you just killed my wife-to-be. What kind of a tool are you? So the monster says, on your wedding night, I'm going to do the same thing to you. So Victor, being an idiot, goes ahead and gets married anyway. And they run off, and they're in the Alps, and he's like, okay, I have to go deal with something, babe, I'll be back in a few minutes. And goes outside, and he thinks he's going to fight the monster, right? No, that's the stupidest thing ever. Obviously the monster's going to go for the girl. Victor goes outside, monster comes in through the window, girl screams, ah! Then all of a sudden, Victor comes running back in, his wife is dead. And so Victor's very upset, so he decides he's got to get out of there. He takes off and starts up towards the Arctic Circle. Now, throughout the book, there's been this guy, and he's like a Russian boat captain, and Victor's been telling the story to the Russian boat captain, and the boat captain is the one that actually supposedly writes it down in the story. So they go through, and he gets up there in the Arctic, and the boat captain saves him, and Victor is dying. He's very, very sick, and finally, he dies. And then the monster is on the boat, and is talking to the captain, and the monster says, I'm going to take my father, and I'm going to go out into the ice, and I'll bury him, and then I will stay there until I die as well, because I have nothing to live for. So the captain says, okay, you have fun with that, and lets them go. And they go off into the ice, and that's the end of the book. Now, the big thing about Frankenstein is the modern parallels. We've got two parallels running throughout the entire book. One is abortion, which I think that issue has been just so overramped in society. I mean, it's a huge issue, and we should definitely talk about it a lot. But I don't want to cover it here, because I want to talk more about the other parallel, which is cloning. See, the thing is, the monster, the entire book, struggles with, do I have a soul? That little part of us that makes us who we are, right? So, the monster is Victor's creation. He's made out of leftover parts of other humans, and yet he has his own unique personality. It's not like one of the personalities from one of the victims of the grave robbing is in the monster. No, the monster's his own person. But he doesn't actually have a body that's his. He's pieced together full of other people's parts. So, the question is that the monster desperately wants to know, do I have a soul? And human cloning is terribly similar. See, how it works is, you take a few cells from another person and you create another person out of that person. So it's like you're taking leftover parts, like cells, and you've taken them and you're putting them into, and you're creating a whole nother person. So in theory, you could combine people like that. So would the human clones have souls? We don't know. Because, honestly, how can you know? You can't test to see if there's a soul, right? It's not like souls are not physically part of you. It's not like they hang out in your appendix or something like the Egyptians used to think. No. The soul is the eternal part of you that lasts after we die. So the big question is, would clones have a soul? Now, personally, I don't know. And I don't think we're ever going to be in a position to know. I think that right now it's illegal to clone human beings in all countries that are capable of cloning, with the possible exception of Africa. I'm not sure about their laws. They're a little less strict. But the big thing is, I just don't think that anyone would be bold enough to actually clone a human being, and if they did, they wouldn't come out and tell everybody. Right? There's this new TV show that's coming out that's about a bunch of girls that find out they're all clones, and I think it's going to deal with some of the same underlying tones. So, what do you think? Do clones have souls? Was Frankenstein a great literary work? Or was it just a really messed up story that some teenage girl told to impress her friends? I don't know. Tell me down in the comments. So, to wrap it up, don't do drugs, stay in school, don't eat roadkill. Have a great day.